What's up, everyone? So recently I did a written post that talked about the 3 Hebrew and 3 Greek words that are associated with this concept of atonement, of how there was a person who performed the act of atonement. That was one word we looked at. Then there was the place where the act of atonement occurred. That was the second word. Then there was the actual presentation of the sacrifice, the atoning sacrifice that was made, and that was the last word. And what we have in the Old Testament are 3 words that point to a greater reality. They are a shadow that points to a greater reality, and that greater reality is Jesus, because Jesus is the person, the high priest who makes the atoning sacrifice. He is the place, the new place by his blood where the atoning sacrifice occurs, and he himself is the atoning sacrifice. So he's all 3. Where we have in the Old Testament, it would have been 3 distinct elements. In Jesus, he is all 3. So what I'm going to do is do a series of videos, 3 videos on this, where today we're going to highlight just that first one, how Jesus is the person or the high priest who makes or does the actual atoning sacrifice. But before we do, we have to look at the big picture. Why is there a need for an atoning sacrifice? Why is there a need for reconciliation? Well, it all goes back to the garden, right? Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created all things, and it was good. Everything was as it should be. It was shalom. And then sin entered. Cosmic ruin occurred, right? And the vocation that humanity was given was fractured, as well as the relationship that between God and humanity was fractured, and there needed to be a reconciliation between 2 parties, right? And what God has always been in the business of doing is dwelling with his image bearers, right? He didn't allow for the cosmic ruin, the sin, the fall to disrupt that, but he's always been in the business of dwelling with his image bearers. So he put in place a system, a sacrificial offering system that allowed for that reconciliation to occur, allowed for sin to be removed, for forgiveness to be granted, for cleansing to occur, right? And for that divine wrath to be appeased. And so that's kind of the background of why, and as a result of that, reconciliation between the 2 parties could occur. So we look at that first Hebrew word. It's the Hebrew word Kafar, and it has this idea of covering over. In fact, it's the word that was used when Noah was commanded in Genesis 6 to cover the ark in pitch, right? Cover the inside and the outside of it with pitch. It would actually cover it, right? He's covering it over. And so this is a word that is used mainly in the book of Leviticus. That's this idea of atoning for sins, where sins would be removed, where they would be forgiveness would be granted. There would be cleansing, and again, divine wrath would be appeased. And so what we have again is a shadow that points to a greater reality. And there was a particular word, kafar, again in Hebrew, but it was translated into Greek. In the Greek Old Testament, it was called the Septuagint. It was translated in the Greek word hilaskomai. And this particular word hilaskomai is what the author of Hebrews uses in Hebrews chapter 2 verse 17, when he says, "For this reason he had to be made like his brothers in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people." And that word to make atonement is hilaskomai, or what would be kafar in the Hebrew. And so what we have here is one aspect of this, the individual, the person who makes the atoning sacrifice. And here we have Jesus being the high priest, right? And the fact was, the high priest would do this on the Day of Atonement. He would go in the Holy of Holies one time a year, but the fact was he would have to go again and again, and he would offer a sacrifice not only for the sins of the people, but for his own sins. And the high priest would continually stand. They could never truly sit down in the sense of the work being finished, because they were always doing it for themselves and for the people. But the fact is, Jesus is the perfect high priest, and as a result, he can sit down. The work is finished. The work has been complete. And so what we have in Jesus is the greater reality. He is the person, the high priest, who performs the act of atonement. because of who he is. And so what we're going to look at next time is we're going to look at the place, how Jesus fulfills the perfect place, the new place, by the means of his blood, how he is the new place of the atonement. So take a look for that next video. Until next time, keep putting those puzzle pieces together. God bless.